Hi there and welcome to ABC News Live. I'm ABC News Political Director Rick Klein, joined here by Johnny Verhoevic from our political team, Catherine Folders from our White House team, and over at the White House today is Alex Malin. And a lot to get to on a Friday, one of the more consequential weeks of the Trump presidency winding to a close. We do want to acknowledge the very sad news about Senator John McCain's health with the announcement from his family that they will be discontinuing medical treatment. We're going to get to that, but first I want to hit the big topics that are impacting the White House in a big way. Once again, it's been the theme of the week. The latest news is that the chief financial officer of the Trump organization, Alan Weisselberg, according to reports as confirmed by ABC News, has been granted an immunity agreement with prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. This seems to stem from the Michael Cohen plea earlier this week. Catherine, yet another close Trump associate who seems to be talking.
Right, exactly. It's a big deal. Another top Trump ally. He's worked for the Trump organization for years. He worked with President Trump's father, Fred Trump. He controls the company along with the president's two sons. So the fact that he's been granted immunity to testify against Cohen is a really big deal. And he's also, I know we have a good graphic of this, but Trump has called him a loyal employee. He said he's the master at playing the cards of business. He's focused and thorough. You see all of those on the screen now. So you can imagine what he's feeling right now. He keeps a handle on everything. He ignored questions on that today, but he really has a window into that operation and all the finances of the Trump organization.
And I think that's the difference about this week, is that you really see these major developments regarding key figures who really could have the most damaging information to the president. It's really about those central figures like Weisselberg, like Michael Cohen. And this week you really saw the sort of ratchet up to a different level of danger, I think, for the White House.
And Alex Malin over at the White House, the president is off to a political event tonight in Ohio. This has been a week that has rocked the presidency, rocked the White House. The guilty finding by the jury about Paul Manafort just happened on Tuesday. Michael Cohen, of course, now the news about Alan Weisselberg, in addition to David Pecker, the CEO of the parent company of the National Enquirer and another National Enquirer executive. A lot of names in the mix suddenly, in a lot of areas, frankly, where this White House has to be concerned about what might spill out.
You're right. This has been a crazy week. I had to triple check just to make sure they didn't go into this week calling it infrastructure week, Rick. But I think that really what we've seen out of this White House is quiet at this point, and quiet from the president, at least regarding both David Pecker and Alan Weisselberg. I mean, the president was quick to tweet and want to respond about those developments with Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort, but so far we have not seen the president really want to respond. We were outside on the South Lawn earlier shouting questions about Alan Weisselberg, and he was just not wanting to come over and talk to us. So I think that right now the White House is waiting to see what this development really means. And it's really, what does this immunity, them being granted this immunity really mean? Does it just mean that it had to do specifically with the Cohen case, or is there something that might implicate the president in all of this? And I think that that's kind of what the White House is really in, this kind of just holding pattern to make sure that, the president doesn't overreact and take this in a negative light. It's really unclear what this development means at this point.
But I also think that as Alex mentioned, the silence from the president on Pecker and Weisselberg, at least right now, is significant. We've reported back in April when Cohen's home office and hotel room was raided that the president, according to our sources, was more worried about Michael Cohen than the Russia investigation. So he can tweet about Paul Manafort and say it was unfair. He did tweet about Michael Cohen, but given what these two men know about Cohen and those agreements, the immunity agreements, I think it's significant that he's silent.
So one person the president isn't silent on is his own attorney general. He
That's
gave
true.
the interview to Fox News earlier in the week saying the only reason he gave him the job was loyalty, insulting him all over again. That prompted a volley back from the attorney general. We reported yesterday that a lot of his support on Capitol Hill appears to be collapsing. This morning, President Trump responding on Twitter to Jeff Sessions saying he welcomes what Sessions is saying, but adding quickly that he wants him to engage in politically directed investigations against Hillary Clinton and others. It seems like President Trump either isn't getting on the point or is missing it on purpose when it comes to his own attorney general.
And you still, I mean, that pushback from Sessions this week was pretty extraordinary. That is pretty extraordinary to have the attorney general push back that hard against the president of the United States.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that the president is attacking Sessions for on Twitter is one of the very things he asked him to do, right, which was prosecute classified information. He said that the ex-CIA contractor, the 63 months in prison, he called that small potatoes compared to Hillary Clinton And, well, that's something that he called for him to do just months ago.
Right.
So.
And the Hillary obsession is still kind of there. I mean, it's still something that is clearly on the president's mind. Of course.
Yeah.
And it's something that he still has his mind on.
And it really depends on how you read this, Alex, but you could say that this is the president almost daring Jeff Sessions to make good on what he's saying and quit rather than go through the indignity of being fired. Meanwhile, the talk on Capitol Hill is that Sessions is basically gone after the midterms. It is a strange set of circumstances, to say the least, but it does seem the president has chosen someone that he wants to engage in this fight with for political or maybe policy/legal reasons.
Yeah, I think that, you're seeing Republicans, like you just mentioned, pretty much who were originally saying, like Senator Lindsey Graham, that this would be a red line in 2017 if the president had gone on to fire Sessions back then. Now he's basically paving the way for the president to be able to do this now. But I think that the president, what I was speaking to a White House official about this yesterday, he noted that Sessions was on the premises here yesterday, minutes after sending out that statement rebuking the president, and the president didn't mention it in this meeting that they were having. The president is quick to be able to send out these, snipey tweets and statements about him, about Attorney General Sessions when he's not in the room with him. But whenever they are sitting face to face, I think that you see that the president's more than willing to give Attorney General Sessions these policy wins. For instance, yesterday in this criminal justice prison reform meeting, the Attorney General left here very much a victor over Jared Kushner, who'd been promoting this idea that they should partner this prison reform bill with a broader criminal justice reform bill. The president agreed, sided with Attorney General Sessions, saying they should put that on hold until after the midterm. So that's why I think really you see Attorney General Sessions now more emboldened to push back against the president, because he is really achieving all these policy wins in his favor.
And as you pointed out yesterday, Alex, on Twitter, what Jeff Sessions said in his statement, if that had just been kind of boilerplate policy put on the Department of Justice website, we wouldn't even blink at it. But the fact is, it was a major rebuke to the president and his White House, and everyone knew it was, whether the president will acknowledge publicly today or not. I want to move on to some news out of the foreign policy front, because the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, was all set to head back to North Korea, trip number 4 for the Secretary of State, 3 of those as Secretary of State. And suddenly the president tweets that he doesn't want him to go. He has been pulled back in. And one of the reasons the president is giving is that he doesn't feel like there's been sufficient progress toward denuclearization. Catherine, what I miss? I thought they'd already denuclearized North Korea.
Oh, right. And the president would say so, right? I think this announcement just shows how vague the initial deal was in the first place, and really that no deliverables came out of that. He treated it as a huge deal. He tweeted all about it, but nothing in the end was really delivered. Of course, in those tweets, we have him on the screen there, but he does end that with saying he'd like to send his warmest regards and respect to Chairman Kim, and he looks forward to seeing him soon, Rick. So more to come.
A lot of levels to this.
He clearly still sees it as a potential win for him, but
Yes.
but this is a setback for sure.
Yeah, and has the White House said anything on this, Alex, beyond the president's series of tweets? It seemed like this was a coordinated thing, put this out and get Pompeo off the plane that he was about to get on.
Exactly. No, I think our cameras did end up actually catching Secretary Pompeo outside the West Wing shortly before this tweet was sent out by the president. One of our reporters who were monitoring the cameras noticed that in the bureau. So it does seem that the president did telegraph this to the Secretary of State before tweeting about it, which I'm sure is welcome to Secretary Pompeo. But I mean, yeah, back to the president, right after that summit in Singapore, declared there's no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. I think what the president measures as progress in this is not seeing those missile tests, not seeing any nuclear tests going on. That is really what he's gauging his success with North Korea on, and also those returned POW remains. And so right now, I think the president is willing to say he doesn't want to have Secretary Pompeo go over there, come back, and have that visual of potentially the North Koreans snubbing, as they have U.S. officials in the past who have gone over to try and negotiate to actually take concrete steps on denuclearization.
And I want to turn to a political story that's gotten a little less attention this week because there's been so much else going on. But Congressman Duncan Hunter, who represents the San Diego area in the House, indicted earlier this week, along with his wife, for a series of campaign finance irregularities, some pretty serious violations that had intermingling of personal and campaign funds, paying for a lot of personal expenses. He was on Fox News last night, his first major interview responding to the allegations. Take a look.
You also said yesterday that your wife handled a lot of the family expenses and the campaign finances. So are you saying that it's more her fault than your fault?
Well, I'm saying when I went to Iraq in 2003, the first time I gave her power of attorney, and she handled my finances throughout my entire military career, and that continued on when I got into Congress, because I'm gone 5 days a week, I'm home for 2. So and she was also the campaign manager. So whatever she did on that'll be looked at too, I'm sure.
I'm sure he's right, but that's going to be a tough day in the Duncan Hunter household.
I don't want to be at the next Hunter family gathering to have that conversation. I think that's going to be pretty awkward. But you underscored it there. On any other week, this story is a huge story. This is a sitting member of Congress who has been indicted for some pretty serious, campaign finance violations. And politically, this is a district that, it's pretty red, but it's one that this gives Democrats an opportunity to compete there. They have a young 29-year-old nominee there who is getting some buzz, but in a normal election year, this wouldn't be a competitive district.
We were talking a little bit about this before, but another question to you is these comments that he made on Fox News. Do these appear to be politically or legally motivated?
That's the thing. Is it's a pretty hard political sell to say just blame my wife, but. Legally, it may be the strategy.
And they're both facing the scrutiny. They've both
Exactly.
been indicted in this. I have been struck also by the response from Duncan Hunter has been very Trumpian in talking about the Democrats in the Department of Justice. This is a political vendetta. He says the U.S. government will do anything. Again, he's part of the U.S. government. It's President Trump's own Justice Department, just another arm of Jeff Sessions' law, I suppose. Yeah. Finally, guys, we want to close this Friday with the very sobering news from the McCain family. We know that he's been battling a very aggressive form of brain cancer for the last year. Statement from the McCain family today that the treatments will stop. There's of course, a recognition in this about the fact that McCain, after this long career, appears to be facing his demise. It is a sad and again a sobering moment across Washington. Feels to me like a lot of people to be reflecting on the McCain legacy with some depth in the coming days. Yeah, and he's already received prayers and praise from both sides of the aisle in Congress. Sarah Palin, his former running mate, multiple people coming out, close friends of his, Jeff Flake, already posting messages of prayers and praise. Yeah, and I mean, I think it has really sparked, again, this conversation about his legacy in the Republican Party, because, the elephant in the room is that he has been one of the biggest Republican critics of this president. And he's managed to maintain a pretty active voice in foreign policy and military matters as well. And Alex, have we heard anything from the White House at all on the news about the McCain family?
I've reached out to multiple officials, and we have not received any type of response yet. When McCain's diagnosis was announced last July, the president tweeted, Melania and I send our thoughts and prayers to Senator McCain, Cindy, and their entire family. We do not yet have a tweet. Right around when this news was breaking, that's when he was leaving, though, to go to Ohio for the night, so perhaps he's wrapped up. But again, that contentious relationship the two have. The president just this past week in West Virginia was the most recent time that he attacked McCain for that no vote on health care. That has stuck, I think, with the president more than any other moment, perhaps, by any politician who has stood up to him since he's taken office. The president has brought that up in nearly every single campaign rally since that no vote, without mentioning John McCain's name. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to be remembering McCain's name and thinking about him and his family in the days to come. Yeah. That does it for this edition of the Briefing Room here at ABC News Live. Thanks to Alex Mallon, Johnny Verhoevic, and Catherine Folders. I'm Rick Klein. We'll be back next time and next week with another edition of the Briefing Room.